welcome back to this month. The month of September, the end of September, leading into October of 2022. And we have a really interesting interview with Rachel from Chicago. And she actually reached out to us from one of our social media posts of if you're an artist and you want to be interviewed. And she did. So if you're an artist and you want to be interviewed, a musician, a painter, a photographer, email us down below. Email Al Gurnan, reach out to him, and he'll get you set up in getting set up for an interview. Let's get into that interview.
My name is, I have a really long name. My name is Rachel Ahava Rosenfeld-Dlatt. And I am a professional painter working in the Wrigleyville neighborhood in Chicago. I'm originally from a suburb of Kansas City called Overland Park, which is where I learned what art was. And when I first got excited about it, my mom worked for the Nelson Atkins Museum. And so I got to run around a museum a lot as a kid, which, as it turns out, makes you really, really excited about old things and pretty things. And so when I went to college, the first class I signed up for was drawing one. I knew I was going to be an art major. I hadn't really taken art before, but I had this gut feeling when I walked into the art building, like, this is my spot. And I have not really left the studio since. And just a little bit of other background. I studied art at Hollins University for Women in Roanoke, Virginia, at the Jerusalem Studio School in Civita Castellana, Italy. I have a master's degree from Washington University in St. Louis, and have done a little bit of postgraduate work with the University of Chicago and some other groups here in the city since I got here. So yeah, that's who I am. And I'm a professional oil painter. I guess it's not obvious.
That's cool. How long have you been doing your paintings?
So I went to Hollins in 2010. It's 2022, so 12 years, which is crazy to me. I got the math right on that. Right? Don't ever trust me with math.
I'm not good at math either. My younger brother, who's also a part of Happy Accidents, he does all the math. He can like do the craziest divisions and adding and subtractions in his head. He's just like, oh, what's this? Oh, okay, it's that. I'm like, all right, cool. You're my calculator.
Oh yeah, my husband had to show me how to do a spreadsheet on Google Sheets the other day for like some studio expenses. And I was sitting there and he's like, you have how many college degrees and you can't use a spreadsheet? I was just like, well, it wasn't part of my education. I can measure things, I can do geometry. That's how it goes.
Yeah, so you said you first got interested in art when you were hanging out at the museums with your mom. What like really drew you to it, or was it just like the familiarity of everything?
So it's kind of funny because when I would be at the museum, it meant that either I had a fever or it was like a snow day or a teacher in-service day or something. And so originally it wasn't that familiar. My mom likes to tell a story about how I was, I think, 6 or 7, little, and she was working. So she wasn't really paying that much attention to me. And I was just like walking, the museum was closed because it was so snowy out. But she was the assistant to the the curator of the African art department. So she was, in some closet somewhere typing something. And I decided to go find the bathroom. And there in the Nelson, in this big stone stairwell, is this, I think he's like 20-foot tall wooden Buddha. And he's hollow. And he's gigantic. And apparently her boss realized I hadn't come back and went looking for me. And I was sitting there staring at the Buddha crying because I thought he was going to step on me. And so, like, art had power in that moment. And I remember walking through the galleries with my mom in this closed museum and seeing, like, this Abex painting that was, like, a giant black dot in the center. And her asking me what it meant to me. And I just told her it was stupid. And so, like, I started seeing all these types of art. And I would hear her boss, who was this incredible woman, she grew up, I believe, in South Africa. Her name's Elizabeth Cameron. She walked with a cane because she had polio as a child, but she would go to the Democratic Republic of the Congo and work with these tribes to preserve these ancient masks and ceremonial items. And like that sense of adventure really got me excited. And the sense that like you can go anywhere in art and find meaning, and you learn how to find meaning in things. And just like hearing the stories, it's like, I want to go on adventures. This is cool. So that's like what got me into it as a kid.
That's really cool. Um,
Yeah, it was fun.
do you have a favorite piece of artwork that you've created?
Probably one of the ones behind me. I set a couple of paintings up on our box here. I can show you. This real big purple girl. I guess they're both purple. I can send you an email, like a good image. But right now she's called, I act like they're people. But That Which We Cannot See Is Thriving. And it's the second painting of that title. I always just put numbers after things. And I've been working on it. Sorry, I'm trying to think of how, it's like 5 years I've been working on it. I'm very slow, but it's this deep, complicated mess. And every time I come back to it, I find ways I want to explore the painting more. So
That's cool. I know coming up with names for things is always hard. Like with my photography, and like I have photos. It's like Cactus
Man.
1, Cloudscape 2. You know?
I look in like poetry journals because I love poetry. That's what I got into my university originally for writing. That's what my scholarship was for. And so I go to poetry journals and I will tweak lines of poems and like change the lines, but like I'll start with that to make titles. And like these poems that kind of get me excited when I can't write. Like Yehuda Hamachai is a big poet that I like. Yeah, I try to use like Jewish poets because I'm Jewish, but yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you kind of already said that like you love that going anywhere in the world there's art and there's things to explore with art. Is there anything else you love about the art world?
So many things. I like the fact that while the art world is really very competitive, it's competitive in a friendlier way than corporate America. To me, it's the difference between if you've ever watched an American cooking show, you know how like they're all stressed and like they hit the buzzer and everyone has to stop. To me, like that's not what the art world's like. It's like Great British Bake Off, where if you're done early, you go and help someone else. It's the way I love the camaraderie among emerging artists. Anybody who I reach out to answers my email. You know, they may not be able to do whatever it is I wanted to do, but they always answer my email. And that goes for like people in museums, that goes for other artists, that goes for curators. You can DM somebody on Instagram and just be like, hey, your work's really cool. Want to do a studio visit? And they are happy to like find a time in their calendar. I love that sense of feeling supported by people who I met over the internet or at school or whatever. I also love the idea that in my work I'm always digging for something. I always get to make something better and I get to do it on my own terms. That like there's so much like juicy excitement there. I love like the research aspect of being an artist. There are a lot of things I love about being in the art world. There are a lot of things I hate about being in the art world, but the only other thing I'd mention is like the resilience of the art world has been really beautiful. I read a statistic when I was studying in an art business class that it was something like 80% of galleries closed after the 2008 economic crash in the United States. 80% of all art galleries closed their doors, which is crazy. And that since then they have, for the most part, continued to close and very few have reopened. And yet, if you go on in artist Facebook groups or on like website job boards for artists, there are always people trying to start something and you can always get in on the ground floor of something and participate. And if you give it your energy, it will return energy to you. I'm a fellow right now for the Connect International Residency. And that's like what it's all about is like, you don't have to have gallery representation. You don't have to be in a museum. If artists help other artists, you can make something big happen.
Yeah, that's one of our business taglines is like artists helping artists.
Yeah. It's a big deal and it doesn't happen in other areas. I don't feel like I have a lot of friends who work big corporate jobs and I feel like there are structures there for them to help each other, but it's not as like, you know, like I don't get paid to be a fellow for Connect. That's not something I get paid to do, but I love it. I get excited about it. And so I want to do it. And that goes for the boss of Connect. I don't know that she gets paid. Like, but we're all doing it because it actually helps. And so it makes us want to connect. I think it's cool.
So you briefly mentioned things you don't like about the art world. Did you want to touch on any of those?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, there's a lot of ingrained racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism is something that like has been a problem for me. I'm Jewish. It's not something I'm going to ever apologize for. It's a community I've been a part of since I was born, and like dealing with that is pretty gross. I on my social media, I post a ton about art, occasionally about my dog, and a bit about being Jewish, just because it's important to me. And I've caught flack for saying things about holidays, and it's like, holidays aren't political, guys. It's just a holiday. Like, and like that is really gross. The misogyny of like, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's some like disgusting number of people represented in art galleries are cisgender men, and that like women, transgender people, you know, people elsewhere on the gender spectrum, like don't get taken seriously. Which is one reason I think working with women artists particularly is so powerful. I have an all women's education. Like I'm a really big proponent of making spaces, like cisgender men have spaces, so making spaces for other genders of people, that's important. That and just like how hard it is to gain legitimacy can be really aggravating. I'm a really highly educated person, and like I struggle to get into good galleries, things like that. Like it's a lot harder for other people. I have access to a lot of resources, and I have a lot of privilege that a lot of other people don't have, and it's hard for me. So I can only imagine how hard it is for them. And a lot of them are making really cool, really exciting work, and people just don't know, and have no way of knowing. And so like I think that the idea that a lot of artists don't gain, I don't want to say like fame, it's not fame, but like respect in our little corner of the professional world until they're 50 or 60 years old, and the financial implications of that and the mental health implications of that, I think can be really detrimental to a lot of people's art careers. And I think that it makes a lot of people stop making the things they're passionate about, and the things that if people knew about them would get them really excited. So I think that's a shame.
Yeah, for us Native Americans, holidays are political, with like Columbus Day.
Oh yeah.
I think a couple of states have changed it to Indigenous Peoples Day, so it's just kind of funny. But it's interesting to hear like the different types of struggles other cultures face.
Right. Like, just for example, you know, I shouldn't have said holidays aren't political. That's not accurate. I apologize. What I meant is like, for example, in graduate school, I had a professor who scheduled a visiting artist to come on Rosh Hashanah, which like so for Jews, our calendar works differently. It's a lunar calendar. And so like our holidays change dates. They don't change dates on the Jewish calendar, just on the Gregorian calendar. And he was like, no, it's mandatory. You have to be there. And it's like, I'm going to be in synagogue with my family. Like I have to. It's the whole, like the second holiest day of the year for us. And thankfully the university had a policy, like he couldn't actually dock my grade for it. But he was an important person in the art world. I'm not going to say who it is, but, and I just remember being like, I don't want to burn a bridge with this person, but like, it's the new year. Like it's our new year. I spend 6 hours in synagogue. I can't be at this other thing. Or like just posting, like if I post something that's like just a fact about my religion, I've had art groups that say politically see certain things a certain way, then criticize me for just like posting a fact about being Jewish. And it's just like, you can have whatever views you want to have, but this is my religion, and like just don't come at me for something that has nothing to do with what you're talking about. So, but yeah, I definitely see what you're saying, and like you're completely right. So I apologize for saying that.
No, it's okay. It's just basically like when you're living on the reservation and all you surround yourself with other like natives and people, there's definitely a certain bubble you're in. So it's nice talking to other artists outside of that bubble and just getting a completely different perspective.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's true. I think it's really exciting to meet people who are coming from other places and other cultures and other traditions.
So how do you stay motivated in your work?
It's hard. It's a hard thing to do. Um, I'm lucky to have a lot of support. So like when I'm not feeling motivated, I can call friends or my husband or my parents who all are really, really emotionally invested in my art career, who remind me why the heck I'm doing what I'm doing, that I'm passionate about it and I'm good at it. Um, I also, there was one time, this was before the pandemic, and I was in a show that I was really excited about, but I just remember like the day came and I just like was not having a good day for some reason. And I had submitted my work and had gotten accepted alongside some artists who I really respect. And I walked into the show, and a lot of the people who were there were already a little bit, tipsy. And this one gentleman who's older and, he sells a lot of work, he makes really interesting work, just shouted, "There's the best painter in the room. This girl is the best painter in the room." And it was the first time anyone had ever said something like that about me, especially in public, especially coming from someone who's older and who I have a lot of respect for. And so like I try to bring that moment to mind when I'm feeling laggy, and that like there are people who get excited about my work. They want to see it. It's not just me alone in my studio, even though sometimes it feels like it's just me alone in my studio. And like, so at that point, I always try to play some hype music, put on some Lizzo, put on some Dessa. I've been listening to the music from Six, the musical, like, try to like hype myself up. And at the end of the day, like, there's a Chuck Close quote, which is, "Inspiration is for amateurs. The rest of us just show up and get to work." So I try to say, like, even if you're just moving your brush around a little bit today, or you mix 10 colors, like, it's a good day. You got work done. It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always
But
nice
it's
to
fine.
get good feedback from somebody.
Yeah. I mean, bad feedback is useful too. Don't get me wrong. And I get a lot. I try to seek out feedback of how I can improve. But every once in a while, like, you need that cheerleader moment.
Hmm.
And that's, I think everybody does. I think that's like a universal, like, you need support. But I'm lucky to also have a lot of support in my corner. And I love that.
So I saw like your photos, or your not your photos, your paintings are of photos.
Mm-hmm.
How do you find the
They are.
work? Do you like go to thrift stores or antique stores or?
That's how it started. It actually started after I pulled an all-nighter. I was living in Roanoke, Virginia, which is like this tiny city kind of out in the boonies near West Virginia. It's beautiful, in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And I pulled an all-nighter with one of my friends, and we wanted to go to this coffee shop before class. And there was like an antique store in the shopping mall. And so we just like went in to wander around for a little bit. And I found a shoebox full of photos for, I think, like $10 or something. And I just remember sitting there being like, "You shouldn't be here. Why are you here? Like, you should be in someone's photo album." So I took them home. Like, I mean, I paid for them. I took them home. I didn't steal them. And I started painting them. And I have like a whole reason why I did that. But now I've realized that I like the hunt for the photos. So I don't order individual photos. Also, that's a really expensive thing to do. I have a very kind of creepy practice of going on eBay, and people will sell boxes of photos by weight. And I think who they are is estate sale companies who, when they go through people's houses and they sell whatever, at which is what people want. But a lot of people think vintage photo albums are cool to put their own photos in. So they take the photos out and they don't want to throw them in the trash. They don't know what to do with them. It's like, these are photos. I don't know if people don't want them or like what the deal is. So they just sell them by weight. And so I buy giant boxes of like 1,000. And then I keep all of them. I don't ever throw them away. I don't cut into them. Like, I have very specific rules on how I treat the photographs. I also don't paint all of them. Like, I wouldn't be done in the next 5,000 years as slow as I am. Yeah, I get them off eBay and Etsy for the most part. I also, people will send them to me at this point. Like, I have my mom's friends will be like, "I was cleaning out my mom's house. We don't want these. Here you go." Like, because now they know that I use them. Or like, if my mom is running around an antique store, because that's what she does, like, she'll just get every photo she sees, assuming they're affordable. So yeah, I buy them on eBay. It's weird. It's a weird habit.
It's kind of weird.
Oh no, it's very weird. But at the same time, I don't know what other people do with them, and I do know what I do with them, and I try to like be as respectful of them as I can in how I treat them. Because my family doesn't have a lot of family photographs. At least my dad's family doesn't. And I always hope, like, if someone happened across our heirlooms in Russia or in Poland and they weren't attached to us anymore, that they would treat them with respect and hold on to them. So I try to do the same thing for the photos I come into contact with. And if anybody ever walked up in one of my shows and was like, hey, that's my grandma, it's like, okay, we are going back to my studio. We're finding every photo connected to this one. You can have them. They're yours. You know, I wouldn't, like, at that point, they're not mine anymore. They're only mine because other people don't want them. That's kind of the way I see it.
Yeah, it's like there's obviously a market for unclaimed photos.
Oh, there's some weird, if you like go searching, because I will hunt through every page of eBay because I buy like weird anonymous ones. I don't buy things that have a theme or that have a certain, I only buy color photos. I get a lot of black and white ones mixed in, but because to me, like, black and white photos, like, color is interesting to me. I'm a painter. But like people will sell photos of celebrities specifically for like a lot of money, like old photos of Elvis doing a concert. I actually found a photo of Roger Stone, of all people, who's, I don't know if you know, he's like a very creepy Republican, in one of my boxes. And I remember bringing it to my husband. I'm like, what do I even do with this? He was like, nothing, just keep it, I guess. Like, but like, I knew that like there are people out there who would want this, but like, I don't want money from the people who would want it. So it's just in a box somewhere. I don't even know where it is anymore. Yeah.
So, like, buying that many photos in, like, bulk, how do you decide which ones do you paint?
So usually when I first get a box of photos, the first thing I do is I just go through them and kind of sort them into piles of like, this is formally interesting to me and this is not formally interesting to me. There are photos that I won't paint on principle if it's got any kind of nudity that would be embarrassing for the person in the photo. I don't paint it. I don't paint I try not to paint photos that I think would be embarrassing to anybody. You know, to me, that's just like not kind. I don't paint photos that to me don't have interesting colors. So like if they're really, really faded, a lot of times I won't use them. And so like I kind of sort those aside, and that doesn't mean I'll never use the boring color ones. Like sometimes they will pair really interestingly with another photo I'm working with, because what you'll notice is none of the paintings are just one photo anymore. You know, either that or I just started one that's one photo, but lots of things are covered up and there are certain things that are pulled forward. And so I sort them into kind of interesting and less interesting. And like I have like a pile of ones I know I want to work with. And I start going in and trying to find other photos to paint with it that are connected to it in some way. So it might be like people interacting with their children. I don't know if they're their children. They could totally be other people's children. Or like I'm fascinated by people's living rooms. I think living rooms are just a really interesting place to be and a place to see. Or I'll try to find like people eating at tables in in what looks like a gathering of some kind. So I try to find like these common bridges between photos. And then sometimes after that, like I'll be working on a painting, I'll feel like it needs more, and I go through hunting again. And it's funny because as I do that, my hands always start to smell like old photos. And I like can't get the smell off for a while. And it's a very peculiar, like dusty smell. I don't know. It's really weird. But like I literally just sit on my studio floor and like flip through them constantly. And then after that, they actually I brought this out so I could, that was graceful. Show it to you. Like they get taped a lot of times to the tops of my boards. Like not taped. I have photo corners so they don't get destroyed because I don't want these guys to be damaged. And I try really hard not to get paint on them. So they live in like little photo corners that are super glued to boards. No, I can't get it back on. But yeah, that's how that works.
So like, why oil paintings?
So that I actually have a reason for that. So I've never really been trained to paint with anything else. I took one class on gouache one time. Oil to me is, when you talk about mixing different colors, is the most impeccably precise way to do that when you're painting. It's the most, because it dries so slowly, you can keep playing with a color that you're making for a really long time. I've had it take me a half an hour to mix a color before, and I like one time I counted, I had worked on like a maybe 4 square inches of a painting, and I'd mixed 72 colors to go into that square inch, and that square inch was like the 5th layer. You can't, and in acrylic, everything would have dried too quickly. I would have had to redo every one of those colors rather than letting them evolve from a single pile of paint that maybe like came from a piece of the, brick wall. I would have to remix from, if I moved from this spot to this spot, I'd have to remix that from scratch in acrylic or gouache because it would have dried. Whereas in oil, like I can then take half that pile, move it, develop it, half that pile, move it, develop it. So like the slow drying property is really important to me because it allows me to not have to start from scratch every 10 minutes. Because that would be even more work than already goes into that.
Yeah, like most of the artists
and I
know in my area use like acrylic.
Yeah, acrylic is much safer. It's much better for your body to be around acrylics. They're much more accessible. I shouldn't say they're much cheaper. Some are, some aren't. But in general, they can be more like cost effective. Like you can make a beautiful painting out of much cheaper acrylics than you can out of cheaper oils because of the way the pigmentation works. Something I actually am kind of struggling with right now is that, someday my husband and I want to have children, and like you can't paint in oils while you're trying to have kids. It's not healthy. It's not safe. And so like I have to learn, and it's something that I find really intimidating actually, because I just don't know how to do it. I have acrylics. I use them for like making essentially drawing. I don't draw with pencil really, but like I'll draw with my brushes, like as underpaintings and stuff. But yeah, no, acrylic and gouache and watercolor are all more common and more safe. Oil paint's not particularly good for you. One of my professors actually had that gouache class because she said, I don't want any of you having 2-headed babies. And I'm like, great, thanks. That's wonderful. Thanks, Allison. It was like I said, it was an all-girls school. So she was very concerned. She literally will message me every 2 weeks and be like, are you wearing gloves right now? You wearing gloves? Let's stop. Stop it. I'm a full-grown adult now. You can't bug me about wearing gloves, but she does.
So, do you do your own photography, or have you tried doing photography, or do you just stick to paintings?
I take photos of my paintings on a real camera. I don't super know how to use my camera. I'm working on it. I literally bought a book called If You Want to Take Good Photographs, Read This book, and it's really useful. I never took any photography classes, which I regret. The mistake. Would like to take some. I feel a little ridiculous that like one of my friends was like, you have a nice camera. And they were getting engaged. And she was like, can you just take a couple of photos for us on the nice camera? And I was like, just warning you, like yes, I can, but it's because the camera's set on its auto settings, not because I know what I'm doing. Thankfully, she looked really nice, so they came out really nice, but not because I did anything. Because the auto settings on my camera did a good job. So yeah, I don't take my own photos. I take photos like a normal person. I take photos of my dog and my nieces and stuff like that, on my phone. I'm actually going for a new project. I'm making a small series of self-portraits, and focusing on, I'm also using some older photos, either that other people took of me or that I took of myself, to make paintings of like basically me from like here down, and I'm going to color them in a certain way as a protest against the Dobbs Supreme Court decision that overturned Roe v. Wade. Talking like basically portraits about how like when I go home, I'm from Kansas, which is a very red, very Republican state. I feel like my only value is from the neck down. Like they don't because like if I were pregnant and I needed some kind of emergency something, like they would only think about what was contained in my body, not in my brain. Wouldn't matter what decisions I made. And so I'm actually like, I'm gonna have to take some photos of myself to do that. Don't really know how to do it. We're gonna see how it goes.
Well, a little tip, window lighting is really nice and complimentary.
Yes. That's good to know. That's actually why I came outside to do this interview. So my studio has horrible lighting that's really easy to control, but my only window faces about 3 feet from a brick wall. Just not super helpful for lighting, but it means I can light my whole studio with like, sorry, a cat just ran by, with like, you know, direction, like light, like direct lighting. But I realized I was on a Zoom call the other day that it looked so much nicer if I sat on my patio, so I dragged everything out here.
I say photography is easy, but I've been doing it since like 3rd grade, so it's kind of hard to just tell people like it's easy.
So funny. I look at so many photographers, like my entire master's thesis was basically on photo theories because I work so much with photos. And it's funny because like I will try to take photos that remind me of like a William Eggleston photo or something, and like I can't do it. So like it's so funny. I think it comes naturally to some people. And some people like me, like I just don't know what I'm doing. Someday I will take a photography class and it will sound like less of an idiot when I talk about it, but it hasn't happened yet. So it's something I would like to do. You know?
Yeah, well, like I guess if you like the auto settings, can't remember which one, but like either the A or the P, like aperture and everything, just put on that and then get your lighting correct with the little meter at the bottom. And then it'll help with the rest of the settings.
I try, that's kind of what the book that I have talks about is like literally like how to set up your camera. So I have a DSLR. I have like a Nikon, I can't remember, like D4200 or something. I think that may not be the right number, but I have a Nikon DSLR. It certainly takes nicer photographs than, you know, an iPhone, but yeah, it's covered in paint, which shows people how I use it. Like one of my wedding photographer, like she was, because I got married last year. Like I remember she was talking about something about her different cameras that she was really excited about. And like I sent her a photo of mine and she was like, "You're making me cry. You have to stop." Oh my God, Adrian, didn't mean that.
So you mentioned that the self-portrait project you're working on. Is there any other projects you're working on?
So, I mean, yes, I'm always working on like 17 different things. I get new ideas in the middle of the night and I just stop what I'm doing and like start a new thing. So I always have a lot of ideas. I'm working on, right now, the main component of what I'm working on are what I call scrap paintings, which is basically where I take photographs and I make them into what I call collages. Like I said, I never cut into the original photographs. I scan them and I'll cut them up and I'll cut up like the printouts, but I don't cut into original photographs. I did it once. I felt guilty for a year. I'm not doing it again. But so like I have different types of scrap paintings I'm working on. Like the one on the left, That Which You Cannot See Is Thriving, number 2, is basically, it looks like, sorry, more helicopters. Photos layered on photos. I'm also really interested in the idea of like messes that like get stacked all up, but that are made out of things that aren't just photographs and that eclipse parts of photos. So like where it's either just like a solid colored sheet of paper or it's an object or I really am interested in like wrapping paper and wallpaper from like the 60s and 70s. That's those crazy psychedelic floral, the like grandma's couch ugly, like that sort of thing. And then like when those eclipse photos, how do they interact? So I have a painting, like this guy is all about wrapping paper, going over a photograph in like weird spiky shapes. I just started another painting that's an image of a photograph overlaid with what's called onion skin paper, which I think was something used in like the 20th century in some kind of office capacity. I don't actually know what it's for, but it's basically colored tracing paper. So the painting is of like the photograph covered in the onion skin paper, which makes it pale and pink. And then like there's like a shaped line and then you see just photo. but it's all interactions pretty much with these like Kodachrome, Kodacolor, Ektachrome type of photographs that I'm like fascinated with. And I feel like I could explore for another 150 years and not get bored. Yeah, so, and then I also have a lot of just like writing ideas and research that I'm just constantly doing. I learned to do research in graduate school, and like when I'm not feeling particularly inspired, I just go on like Google Scholar and find PDFs of things to read. And like I get excited about something that one of them says eventually.
That's really cool. Do you have any shows or anything that you can tell the audience about?
Yeah,
or anywhere to check you out?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. So I will be in an upcoming show. I actually just found out about this last night. I'm really excited. For my fellowship with the Connect residency, I will be putting, I think, this yellow painting that's down here next to me for a little bit in the next Connect residency exhibition, which is going to be at the Hairpin Art Center. I can't remember the start date. I apologize off the top of my head. I'm also going to be in the Roe v. Wade show, which is going to be at Arc Gallery here in Chicago this upcoming spring with lots of other artists. I have a bunch of applications in for other shows, so we'll see. And my work, I'm always posting things on Instagram, either like on the, I love the like story function because I can post photos of how much of a trash human being I am and they don't last forever in my studio. And I'm trying to learn how to make TikToks. So I do post paintings on TikTok.
All right, cool. So those are all my questions. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about for your art or anything?
That's pretty much it. I mean, you know, I work hard. I try to do the best I can. Yeah.
Okay, great for reaching out for us. It was nice to talk to somebody that I didn't have a pre-history with. So
thank you. Anytime I see like anything with any kind of open call, I always try to apply for it. I don't feel like being in art, I feel like turning down opportunity is a bad choice. So I just like can always reach out and always try, and that's something I think is really cool. So I was really excited to get to connect with you guys. Really any chance to talk to anybody about art is exciting. So
yeah, I found it was really interesting that you're from Chicago because my mom's dad's family, they're from Lake Geneva, which is like I think a 20-minute from Chicago.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Have you ever visited up there? I hear it's beautiful.
I did once, yeah, because I originally went to Illinois College. I think it's in Jacksonville, Illinois.
Where's that?
Jacksonville. It's like,
is it like downstate or?
I don't know your state.
That's totally fine. That's totally fine.
I think it's center of the state.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, it's I think 40 minutes from Springfield.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. We drive through Springfield pretty frequently in our rented dirty cars.
Yeah, so for my freshman orientation, me and my mom flew out that way and visited family up there, and then went to the freshman orientation.
Awesome. That's awesome. Did you like being there? Did you end up transferring?
I ended up transferring because they didn't have any film options. Oh, and it was kind of expensive for me to just keep traveling back out from Arizona.
Oh, definitely. I get that. I went 800 miles away from my family for college, and it got pricey really fast. Like it was difficult. So I definitely get it. Where did you end up going, if you don't mind me asking?
I went to NAU. It's northern Arizona. It's in Flagstaff.
Oh, awesome. That's super cool. It's awesome.
Yeah. So it was just like, oh, Chicago. That's so. I don't know. It's just weird the way some things just kind of go back to different like locations that are significant to us in weird ways.
Yeah, my husband always talks about visiting Arizona. I've been to Arizona very briefly a few times, but I've never gotten to see anything. I've never gotten to see anything those places I went because I was in competitive sports for a long time. So we would like see convention centers. But he talks about going all the time. He says it's really beautiful. He says I should go and I could paint. I was like, that sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, the Grand Canyon's really nice to paint. We'll paint it all the time.
Wait, really? That's so cool.
Yeah, I think sometimes they have like workshops or like little sessions where people just come out and paint or look at like all the paintings people have done for the Grand Canyon.
People do that in Chicago. There's actually like a big plein air painting group. And it's neat because they go out in clumps, so you're not like by yourself out in the city with your back turned, you know. But I don't know, it's like a very cool culture, and like at the end of each day that they all go out, they all gather and they all put all their paintings together and take a photo so that you can like see all the different spots people thought were interesting. But it's less exciting where I am because like I can turn my camera around, you can see like we have a tree in a street. Like it's so cool you have the Grand Canyon. I'm like, I have a baseball field. I wanted to paint drunk baseball fields. Yeah, my studio, you can't see anything. So yeah, I'm not originally from Chicago though, so I also cannot talk with authority on the city of Chicago at all. I've been here 6 years. So
Yeah, well, if you come out, let us know.
absolutely.
Yeah, we know some people who do the bed and breakfasts with like the hogans and like different type of rural hoteling instead of like staying at the traditional big name hotels.
Yeah, I'll have to talk to my husband. He would love to do things like that.
Okay, just say we're northern Arizona. It's a lot different than like Phoenix and
cool
Scottsdale.
Got it. Awesome.
All right, well, you have a good weekend.
Yeah, you as well. You as well. Have a great day. It was so great to talk to you, Kelsey.
So that was a really fun interview. It was nice being able to talk to somebody who I haven't had previous knowledge of. Like we said at the beginning of the video, she reached out to us. She's from Chicago, so we didn't really know her before this interview, and it was really nice getting to know her and her artwork and the medium she works with. Like I said in the interview, I don't really know a lot of people who paint with oils. Most of the people I know paint with acrylics, so it was really interesting talking to her about why specifically she likes to work with oils. Yeah, so some business updates. Leading into October, you know, we usually try to do the Inktober. Gernon's going to be doing the Inktober, trying to keep up with the prompts as they come. And Urian has his album and the music video we're working on. You've probably seen posts about that. If you want to see more behind the scene and exclusive content, you can go to our Buy Me a Coffee account, which will be linked below, to see the progress on all of that. And me, Kelsey, will be working on a couple of different photo projects. Mainly the Witchtober. There's a specific one. I'll have the link or the hashtag below on Instagram. The one that I'm kind of trying to do for the challenge for October. Yeah, and we're just pretty excited. Navajo Tea Time was invited to talk or do a meet and greet at the Western Navajo Nation Fair on Saturday. So if you're in Arizona, in the area on Western Navajo, and you want to meet me and Adrian, we will be in a tent somewhere between 12:30 and 4 Daylight Standard Time. I'll also link the Western Navajo Fair stuff below. Yeah, so check us out at the Western Navajo Nation Fair if you want to meet and greet. Me and Adrian will have some Navajo Tea Time merch. And just some more information on that on our own Navajo Tea Time social media and posts, so you can check us out there also. And one final thing is that Algernon's going to be doing physical prints again of his artwork. So hopefully we get into the Native Art Market shows. That's basically November to March down in Scottsdale, and you'll be able to catch him setting up a couple of weekends this winter. So yeah, that's all there is for this month. If we get another person to interview, we'll have another this month. Subscribe, like, share, check out Rachel's work. We'll have all of her links listed down below as well. And yeah, we'll go on it. Bye.